This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski. On today's show, we've got some updates, actually more rumors and stuff getting kicked around about WWE that's going to be taking place this year in 2025, as well as we're going to take a look at what's happening on this road to Netflix on Raw. A lot of stuff taking place with WWE. And, of course, we've got AEW's World's End. We've got the pay-per-view results and kind of what that means going forward. There was a lot that kind of came out of this pay-per-view and a lot of stuff that spilled over onto, I guess, AEW on Max, depending on how you watched it. We're going to get into all of that, break it all down, have a good discussion about it. Doing it with me, as always, he's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
So much good stuff to get to. I'm very impressed with how WWE started their Smackdown run for 3 hours. AEW's pay-per-view was solid. New Japan's kicking off strong. Oh, my God, I'm very impressed with what's going on. I can't wait to talk to you for this next hour.
Yeah, for sure. We didn't even touch on New Japan. New Japan has Wrestle Kingdom going on right now. So a lot of stuff going on in the world of wrestling. We are recording this on a Saturday afternoon, so tons of information and tons of stuff for us to get to. The Wrestle Kingdom results we should have next weekend if there's anything monster that took place, and there always is something huge that'll take place. So we'll get to all of that next week as far as Wrestle Kingdom goes. But let's kick this one off with AEW's World's End. There's a pay-per-view that took place last Saturday. This is going to be what looks to be AEW's last Saturday pay-per-view until we roll around to football season next year. I think it's kind of interesting how AEW staggers their pay-per-views to compete with the NFL. I think it's pretty smart on their part. Of course, Tony Khan, his dad owns the Jags, so it makes sense that he knows about the football scheduling and how important football is to the viewing audience. I do want to get your thoughts real quick on what you thought about this pay-per-view. There was quite a few returns that took place in this pay-per-view, and it looks like we're going to get some stories that are going to spin off from it as well. What did you think of it?
Overall, I thought the pay-per-view was great. I thought that the wrestling was great. I thought that the women getting some time was great. I really felt like overall the pay-per-view was pretty solid. Look, the main event we can discuss and argue, but I will say this. I was very impressed with the performance of Will Ospreay. I thought that to kick off the show, the timing of the way they opened the show, I thought was perfect.
Yeah, Will Ospreay plays a major part in this pay-per-view. We'll kind of get to it as we run through this card. Kicking this card off, we had our 0-hour pre-show. Toni Storm, which, again, forever and a day, I'm not going to necessarily understand what you're doing with her. She's one of your biggest female wrestlers, and you've got her on your pre-show. I really feel like she could have and should have been on this card. You should have found something for her and did something with her. But she makes it to the pre-show. She wins her match on the pre-show, defeating Layla Gray by pinfall. She used an inside cradle. Storm ends up facing Deonna Purrazzo on Collision this week. There was a little bit of back and forth later on in the pre-show where her and Purrazzo have a bit of a face-to-face, and they set up a match to take place on Collision. Now, Jeff Jarrett defeats QT Marshall by pinfall, hitting his stroke finisher. Then we had Action Andretti, Lio Rush, and the Murder Machines, Brian Cage and Lance Archer. They ended up defeating the Outrunners and Top Flight by pinfall. So that gets us through our pre-show. Now we get into the main card. And like you said, Will Ospreay, incredibly impressive throughout. His match is the curtain jerk. It's the first one to open up the main card. It's for the Continental Classic. This is a semifinals match. Will Ospreay ends up defeating Kyle Fletcher by pinfall to advance to the finals. Look, I thought this was a great match, and I think this helps set up and tell a story later on. These guys went a while, and these guys really put in work. Will Ospreay completely covered in his own blood. I think Kyle Fletcher, who was a guy who you and I had talked about when this thing started, we almost felt like he had to come out the winner in this. I think him losing in this match helped elevate him even further. He looked so good in this match going up against Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay obviously looked great. You had guys like Dave Meltzer arguing this was the best opening match AEW has ever put on. I want to get your thoughts on the match, and I want to get your thoughts on what Dave Meltzer said by claiming that this was the best opening match that he's ever seen on AEW.
Look, man, you can always count on Will Ospreay, but Kyle Fletcher did well. I just thought that it was spectacular. The work that he did was clearly, on par with Will Ospreay. And I was very impressed. I felt like the work rate was strong. The involvement of everybody was just out of this world. And to start a pay-per-view like that, oh my God, it was amazing. I was impressed top to bottom with everything that went down. And I just thought that, some people were complaining that, oh, look, you failed to build a star with Kyle Fletcher, that people complain too much. I just thought that the idea is a loss can certainly help a performer as well, as long as they look like they belong. Will Ospreay, everybody knew when we went into the card, hey, Ospreay's got to fight this certain performer. Later on, everybody wanted to see it. So I was very impressed with both parties and their chemistry. They can fight for a long time, and many people will be impressed and want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you can lose a match and you can still get elevated, right? And that's what happened with Kyle Fletcher here. And as long as we're able to take what took place in this tournament, and as long as we're able to take what took place in this semifinal and build off of it, the loss doesn't hurt. The loss actually helps. So as long as AEW and their writing staff and their creative team can find a way to keep elevating and pushing Kyle Fletcher up the ranks, you have a star on your hands. He's got a great look. He's fantastic in the ring. And going toe-to-toe with Will Ospreay is absolutely exceptional. And if you follow any of their social media, he did a really great job cutting a promo after this match, really kind of saying, look, I might have lost, but I took everything from you, Will. You're not going to have enough to go in that match against Okada. And that plays a bit of a part in what takes place later on in this pay-per-view. Our next match in the Continental Classic semifinals is, speaking of Okada, it's Okada taking on Ricochet. Okada ends up defeating Ricochet by pinfall to advance to the finals. After this match, Swerve Strickland comes out. He makes fun of Ricochet, and it continues to build that feud. Now, you fast forward to AEW's Dynamite this past Wednesday. You have Ricochet come out and basically stab Swerve Strickland in the head with a set of what looked like gold scissors. And he continued to stab him, and Swerve was left a bloody mess. So, a couple of things to come out of this one match. And again, this is what I like about what AEW is doing. We hammer AEW a lot of times because the creative and the booking just sometimes doesn't make sense, and it just seems like it's mailed in sometimes. We've got two matches here already, and we've got multiple storylines coming out of these matches. And one sets up for later on in the evening, and one sets up for down the road. And the one with Ricochet is where I kind of want to focus first. You've got this new character with Ricochet. He looks very much like Andrew Tate, and he's obviously a heel. So him getting booed and him getting jeered is going to be what it is. Him resorting to these dastardly tactics of stabbing another guy in the head with scissors, I love it. I think it's great. I think Swerve and Ricochet can have fantastic matches. And I think what happened here with Swerve on the pay-per-view to come out and make fun of Ricochet for losing and basically saying, look, I told you so, I think is a fantastic setup for what we ended up getting on Wednesday night when Ricochet comes out and, like I said, stabs him in the head with the scissors. I kind of want to get your take on Swerve versus Ricochet because I think this could be a really great match. These are guys who have, I don't want to say contrasting, but they are different enough in their styles where I think it can make for a really, really fun match. Swerve's got power and Swerve is explosive, whereas Ricochet is a high flyer. I think that can make for a really, really fun match, and I think you can pull on a little bit of history from these two to tell a really good story. What are your thoughts on these two building this feud out and kind of using this tournament and using this lead up to this final match and then this loss to carry over into Wednesday for that storyline? Yeah,
I just think that you said it. Couldn't say it better myself. It's intriguing. I think Swerve and Ricochet can tell a story, and most importantly, the in-ring work can be very positive. I think that a lot of people will basically really dig into who needs to get over. And I think arguably the tough part's going to be one character, I think both are in the same spot where they both equally need to get over. And I just think that in this case, probably for the betterment of the business, I think Swerve Strickland probably should get over. I think he's the bigger star. But Ricochet you probably need to have a series where 3 matches and Ricochet wins one of them. And then you just have it where, just similar to Drew McIntyre, you just got to be able to say, hey, Ricochet belongs matching up against the caliber of a wrestler like Swerve Strickland.
Yeah, I think you're right. You need, look, Swerve is pretty much a made guy at this point. I would argue that Ricochet probably should win that best 2 of 3 match. Look, again, you can lose and still come out elevated. There has to be some elevation for Ricochet coming out of that. Whether it's his promo is getting better, whether it's him getting elevated up the card, there's got to be something there for Ricochet because, again, he's a phenomenal talent in the ring. It's just a lot of the stuff on the outside of it all, right? You really got to kind of make that feel a little bit more real and not like a geek like Swerve Strickland referred to Ricochet as. Now, going back to Okada, in this match, Okada did a whole lot of nothing for most of the match, basically trying to sell conserving energy, whereas Will Ospreay put on a banger, put on a match where he expelled a lot of blood, sweat, and a lot of energy. Okada conserved the energy. It was more, again, like I said, telling a story for later on, whereas you're going to have Will Ospreay going in at probably 65%, 70%, and Okada's going to be coming into this match later on in the night at about 90 to 95%. I thought that was an interesting story to tell within the match, and then, again, that plays dividends later on. Highlight from the match, Okada runs the ropes, goes back and forth, crisscrosses, back and forth, to then stop and then just slap Ricochet on the back of the head. It made its rounds on socials. I thought it was a really nice touch. I thought the storytelling, again, Okada conserving the energy for the match later on, I think goes a long way. And again, these little things like that I think AEW needs to tighten up on. And I think it was really well done for this pay-per-view. What are your thoughts on Okada kind of playing that conservative game plan, right? Not really expelling the energy, not going out there necessarily trying to win, more or less trying not to lose so he could have the energy to face Will Ospreay later on in the night.
Great. I thought the strategy was perfect. Okada, you're just starting to see a little bit of that turn, and I'm impressed with everything about his presentation. That's what you wanted to see. Just an individual that gets wins, is somebody that has that aggressive mindset, and also at the same time, can have a little bit of that personality. You used to want the personality to override their in-ring performance. And I thought, against Ricochet, I thought it was great, and I thought that the work that he did all night was definitely worthy of discussion and what you can do with him going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun to see what ends up happening with Okada, and we'll talk about what took place after this match with Okada and somebody else who made a monster return. We're going to get into all that a little bit later on here as we get through these matches. Our next match was the Tijuana Street Fight for the AEW Women's World Championship. Mariah May ends up defeating Thunder Rosa by pinfall. After that, we had MJF defeating Adam Cole with the Undisputed Kingdom's Matt Taven and Mike Bennett by his side. He did this by pinfall to retain the Dynamite Diamond ring. Now, this did not go how I thought. I thought Kyle O'Reilly would end up playing a role. I also thought Matt Taven and Mike Bennett might play a role. Kyle O'Reilly ends up coming out later on, and it appears he's part of the Undisputed Kingdom. On Dynamite, you got to see Kyle O'Reilly, and you got to see Roderick Strong, and you got to see Adam Cole in a backstage interview, and Kyle O'Reilly's now wearing an Undisputed Kingdom shirt. There was really no follow-up to Kyle O'Reilly joining the Undisputed Kingdom. And it's little things like that. That's what we criticize about AEW, and that's kind of what we harp on and what gets us all hot and bothered, is you had Kyle O'Reilly part of the conglomeration, and now all of a sudden he's part of the Undisputed Kingdom after basically going 6 months telling Adam Cole to buzz off and telling Roderick Strong to go fly a kite. To me, it's just really, really weird. And it's these types of things that make the storytelling with AEW difficult. We just got done praising some of the really, really intricacies that they did with some really interesting stories to then follow it up with something like this on the pay-per-view and then follow it up and not really have any follow-up on Dynamite. What are your thoughts on Kyle O'Reilly now being part of the Undisputed Kingdom? I guess, because, again, no clear follow-up, just him in a T-shirt.
Yeah, no follow. Exactly. I just thought that again. That was my note. Again, I'm not sure yet, and I'm curious to get your sense of it. I'm not sure. Look, because they've had so many stops and starts, that's where you got to make it worthwhile this time. You got to deliver. Like, stop with the herky jerkiness. If you're going to make these guys serious, then make them serious. That's what I call for when you have this group, because I think it's interesting. But at the same token, you got to have the ability to tell good stories and to have them win some feuds, make them relevant for this group moving forward.
Yeah, and look, if you look at this group, right, obviously headlined by Adam Cole, he's your main eventer. Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong are both guys who are very capable. I would say they are upper mid-card talent, right? They can be upper mid-card talent. And then you've got Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Both those guys have done fantastic things in Ring of Honor. Matt Taven, to me, feels like he's a guy who should be higher up the card. Mike Bennett, when he's on his game, is another guy who should be higher up the card. I feel like you've got a lot of guys who are very strong mid-card talents who you can help elevate if you book them well and if you follow up with storylines and make things make sense. Right now, a lot of this doesn't make sense to me. And that was the other thing. Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, who have been part and been on the side of Adam Cole, when you go to Wednesday, they're nowhere to be seen. I kind of felt like they should have been included in that backstage vignette, and yet you don't get them. So it's little things like that. It's little details that just don't make things click. And like you said, you got to follow up. You got to make these guys serious. You got to make them worthwhile. You got to make them believable. Because right now they just kind of feel like a geek show, and that's just not going to get it done. There's too much talent there. All right, our next match was our AEW International Championship. You got Takeshita retaining his title over Powerhouse Hobbs by pinfall. After that, we move on to our TBS Championship. You got Mercedes Moné defeating Chris Statlander by pinfall to retain her title. This was one of the longer matches on the card. They gave the women some time. I thought this was a really good match. I thought it told a really good story. Statlander using her power, Mercedes Moné using her brains. I thought it worked out well. It's going to be... I feel like you've got to do something with Mercedes Moné. I feel like you've got to help make her click, or you got to help get her to a different spot. So whether that's having her have matches with people like, I don't know, maybe Britt Baker. We haven't seen Britt Baker in a while. I know last time we talked about Britt Baker, she was pretty banged up. You've got Toni Storm, so maybe Toni Storm can have some interaction with Mercedes Moné, and you can kind of build there. Mariah May's been on air basically saying she doesn't have any competitors. So I don't know, maybe Mercedes Moné, Mariah May. I don't know. I just feel like you got to move on from Chris Statlander here. I feel like Chris Statlander, again, very good talent, upper mid card. They don't push her enough to really make her feel like she's a main event star. You've got enough women on your roster who are talented. You need to put Mercedes Moné in a spot where she can just kind of do something maybe a little bit different. Maybe get over. Again, this was a very good match. It really helped highlight both wrestlers. I just feel like the connection with Mercedes Moné just isn't still there. I just don't get it. And that's just kind of, I guess, what it is. Move on to our Continental Classic finals. You've got Okada taking on Will Ospreay. Okada ends up retaining his title over Will Ospreay. Again, the storyline here, Will Ospreay expelled a lot of energy and expelled a lot of blood in his match to open the show. Okada did not. Okada conserved a lot of energy. So Okada gets the win. This was a really, really good match. This was one of those things that we had talked about the week prior. You really want to see this. This is two guys who had a fantastic run in New Japan. You want to rekindle some of that. You want to get some of that back. I feel like this match did a really good job to highlight both of these guys. Now, the big story was what took place after the match. After the match, Christopher Daniels comes out to say that he would normally be presenting Okada with the title to celebrate the victory, but he can no longer do so as he's not an executive anymore. Again, this gets a little bit confusing because he's supposed to be an appointed EVP on behalf of Tony Khan, not necessarily the guy who's going to be coming out. The guy who ends up coming out is Kenny Omega. So Kenny Omega gets his return. He presents the belt to Okada, and they have a stare down to indicate possibly a feud in the future. In the background of these guys standing face to face, they've got the All In for Texas sign. So maybe we're going to have a match there. Maybe it's some foreshadowing, but you're going to get, it looks like we're going to get a build. Kenny Omega versus Okada, which is, if you missed any of that, back in the day, that was some of the best programming New Japan has ever done. It really helped elevate Kenny Omega, really helped Okada, really helped elevate that product in New Japan. They had a great trios of matches. They were absolutely fantastic. So again, looking to possibly rekindle some of that New Japan magic. What are your thoughts on Okada, Omega, trying to rekindle all of that? And I do want to get your thoughts on the whole thing with Christopher Daniels, because I just, again, it's little things, little tidbits. You're supposed to be the EVP for Tony Khan. You're not the EVP for Kenny Omega. How do you not have any power, any pull anymore? And then you go to Dynamite, and it looks like he still has a little bit of power as he's doing different stuff. It just, to me, sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. But look, first and foremost, Okada winning was great. I thought Okada was just spectacular, man. You wanted him to be important. That was what we clamored for, so we have to praise him for doing it. They made Okada look important, and Will Ospreay just unbelievable. Just the movement, the fluidity, it was just great. I think I was just blown away by the fact that, okay, we get a chance to see Okada, Will Ospreay for the opportunity to win the Continental Classic, and Okada wins. A little bit surprising to me, but Will Ospreay, baddest of the bad, doesn't need to have a title or a tournament win. Okada, definitely, I felt, now looking back at it, we predicted it wrong, but I felt like when you see what he's able to do and what this could mean to him, I thought it was great. Now, you bring back Kenny Omega. The crowd was okay with it. I thought that it was great. Yeah, it didn't make sense with Christopher Daniels, but look, the wanting AEW to make sense 24 hours a day is just mind-boggling because it just doesn't happen too often. But look, let's credit and give credit to Kenny Omega for putting in the work to come back. I'm very intrigued with what he's going to do, and it was just good to see him. It was good to hear the crowd react to him. It was just good to see somebody who's battled injuries for a couple years now get back after it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done a lot of work to get back into really, really good shape. He's got a match against Gabe Kidd in New Japan. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what transpires from that. AEW didn't really do a good job of promoting that match and promoting what he's doing, but again, it's little things. We are very picky on these little things because these little things make for bigger things later on. Really does feel like you should be promoting that other show and promoting that match with Kenny Omega as it is his debut return match. But yes, again, a guy who's had to go through a very serious career-altering sickness, and he was able to get better, able to put in the work to come back and wrestle, and hopefully he has a very long future ahead of him, and his diverticulitis doesn't flare up and doesn't cause him to miss any more time. This then moves us on to our main event. We have the four-way match for the AEW World Championship. You got Jon Moxley taking on Hangman Adam Page, Switchblade Jay White, and Orange Cassidy. Moxley ends up winning by pinfall to retain his title. This kind of had your usual stuff, right? You had the Death Riders interfering. You had other guys coming out to run them off. This was a match that at certain points you had guys like Jay White and Orange Cassidy and even Hangman Page winning the match, only to have one of those other guys run in and kind of disrupt the pin. The big thing coming out of this is Moxley wins, and then after the match, you get a return of Adam Copeland, who is now going by Cope. He filed for a trademark to change his name. It's basically like Edge, but it's Cope. So you got Adam Copeland, and you've got FTR for Rated FTR. Their trios group. They come out and they kind of fight with the Death Riders, and it sets up for Copeland versus Moxley, while you have Christian, who's on the outside looking in with his contract that he can cash in at any time. So it makes for a very interesting dichotomy where you've got Copeland and Christian. You now have Copeland and Moxley, and you've got Christian and Moxley possibly. I guess the big thing is Copeland coming back and teaming with FTR. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think about Copeland filing for a trademark to change his name to Cope? I myself, I think it's comical and it's humorous. I don't think it's very good. To me, it feels like very similar to Mercedes Moné. Adam Copeland is the Aldi version of Edge. Is what it kind of feels like to me.
Aldi version of Edge. Look, I'll say this: Cope sucks. I just think that name sucks when you see how when other things could be really interpreted and done better. So I don't know. The explanation's dumb. Rated R superstar, Adam Copeland's too long. Yeah, it's hard to put on a marquee, but, it's still better than Cope. You know what I mean? So we'll move on from that. I mean, how do you argue that? It's just, okay, it's Cope. Whatever. Most people are going to remember him as Edge, and I think they could have did a better job to handle everything that went on. So what are you going to do? But the return was great. FTR working with Edge is going to be perfect. I think that, look, FTR is over, and they've always been in a situation where you feel like they've gotten to a certain level, but maybe they need to get to that next step. And I think that Adam Copeland likes now having a group around him, clearly with the Judgment Day and now with FTR. So now it's just, the question mark is going to be, do you want to see Adam Copeland versus Jon Moxley? Not really, but let's just keep an open mind to what they can create because they're two historic figures in the world of wrestling. Let's see what program they can create. And basically I'm going with it with an open mind in 25, which is we give our opinion. At this very moment, do I want to see this match? No. Do I want to see the build? No. But I'm an open book. Do something to make me interested.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well, right? Like, I need something to latch onto here. I think the big interesting part in Copeland versus Moxley is probably the Christian additive, right? Like having him on the outside because that there's history there between Copeland and Christian. I don't necessarily get the Christian Moxley draw yet. So again, like you said, make me interested. Sell me. We don't have a pay-per-view from AEW, I believe, until February. I think it's like the third weekend in February. So we've got time. You've got time to build and you've got time to tell me a story. Tell me a story. We're going to 25. Like you said, open-minded. There was a lot of good stuff on this pay-per-view. A lot of stuff that coming out of it, we've given thumbs up to. Now, there has been some stuff that we're just kind of like, what are you doing? But it's not as much as I think the thumbs up. So you just keep doing good with the good, and we can kind of look past some of the bad. Tell me a story, make me interested. That's what you've got to do. So we will take a look at calling the card. I get the point because Jon Moxley got the win. I gave us each a bonus point for the C2 semifinal picks being correct because I feel like that was probably the hardest part about picking this card was nailing down those semifinal matches because if you got those wrong, then you didn't really stand a chance in the final match. We got those right. So right now I lead you 14.5 to 9.5. I've got a 5-point lead. Going into 2025, we're both on the same page. We both want to see AEW do better stuff. We want to see AEW continue to kind of build on some of the good. We want to leave some of the bad in 2024. That has us now switching gears to WWE. WWE building out towards Raw on Netflix. That's going to be taking place this Monday. Looks to be a stack card. Sets up really, really nice. Going into that show, we now know who's going to be in the finals for the IC Women's Championship match. That match is going to be taking place the following week on the 13th. I want to get your thoughts on who should be crowned the new Women's Intercontinental Champion, Dakota Kai or Laya Valkyria.
Man, right? I think both have an argument, right? But it just feels to me like Dakota Kai maybe is a little bit further along in her career, but both need this matchup to kind of be relevant. I don't know. I'm just going to stick with Dakota Kai. The two have not done a whole heck of a lot to keep me invested. I think that the SmackDown side is so much heavier weighted in terms of talent and intrigue that the Raw women just got to do a lot more to make that important because I'm all in with what's going on with what we're going to talk about later, what happened on SmackDown, and Chelsea Green is just all eyes on me. She's over. So good luck to whoever wins because right now you're starting from a huge deficit in interest and intrigue.
Yeah, and look, I think you said a whole lot of really valid, really great salient points there. They haven't done enough with either one of these two characters to really make you care. And I think that was the hard thing about the Intercontinental Championship tournament is there was really nobody in there that you really cared about. There was really nobody there that you were behind. When they did the unveil for the U.S. Championship, you kind of went through that and you picked out a couple of favorites. You know, Chelsea Green was one of our favorites. We're like, dude, she's got to win this. Like, it only makes sense. She's been putting on matches of the year for all of 24. She's been in the mix for a lot of these things on the female side. And then you looked at the Intercontinental Championship roster for the tournament, you're just kind of like, like whatever. Like me, I would love to see Lyra Valkyria win this. Dakota Kai, I'm not invested in her character. I don't like her character. Again, a lot of stop and start because she's constantly hurt. And then I feel like Lyra Valkyria, she kind of came out like gangbusters, right? She came out hot. She had a nice match with Becky Lynch. It looked like you could do some stuff with her. She was involved in a couple of stories, and then it just kind of faded. And then she wasn't really on TV for multiple weeks. And then it was kind of like, all right, what are we doing with her? Then they kind of brought her back for this, and she's got a nice little run going in this. To me, knowing what she can do in the ring, I would like to see her, but again, she's got to make me care about her. I don't care about either one of these wrestlers. I don't care about Dakota Kai. I don't care about Lyra Valkyria. So you got to make us care. It'll be interesting to see if we get to the championship match and after if we care, right? A lot of stuff can happen inside of a match that really turns your opinion and really transforms the way you're looking at a wrestler. So they're going to have their time on Monday, the 13th. Hopefully they can make us care, and hopefully whoever that winner is, we end up getting behind them and they get a really nice push and can do something with that belt. All right. The thing that I think everybody was talking about from Monday Night Raw was this promo between CM Punk and Seth Rollins. I want to get your sense if this was a promo segment of the year. This was, to me, absolutely fantastic. I know I talk about my wife a lot on this podcast, and I know I talk about her watching wrestling a lot. Some of her wrestling has waned a little bit as we've had the little one, and some of her attention has been drawn more to dealing with the little one while I get to sit down and take in some wrestling so we can do this show. So she's not as invested anymore. She got to see and listen to this promo, and she was like, I really like this. She's like the way Seth Rollins goes from being his gimmicky Seth Rollins to just straight up talking at CM Punk makes it feel more real. The stuff that was brought up in this promo, I loved because it made it feel very real. You brought up Colt Cabana. You brought up the podcast. You brought up how CM Punk basically tried to shit on WWE at every chance he got. Seth Rollins also brought up AEW and CM Punk's running AEW. CM Punk brought up how Seth Rollins was Vince's favorite little toy and brought up how he hated Vince and that was why he left. He brought up Becky Lynch. There was a lot of really good stuff in this promo that just makes you feel like these two guys really do hate each other. And I thought it was an absolute fantastic promo. I thought this was right up there with the Kevin Owens promo with Cody Rhodes a couple of weeks ago on Smackdown, where it really made you feel like Kevin Owens might actually be the good guy in all of this, and he's not the bad guy in all of this. I thought this was a really good promo where you could just feel the hatred dripping off of these guys. What were your thoughts on the promo, and was this a winner for promo of the year? Is it at least in the running for promo of the year?
Absolutely. CM Punk drops a line like, hey, of course, we're going to have issues. You know, I like this place, but I didn't like the guy that loved you. And CM Punk, you know, held his own in regards to the allegations of he tried to tear down WWE. And look, the tough part was the theme is similar because they introed it before last year. So the Royal Rumble kind of, you know, the injury to CM Punk deflated the feud, but it picked back up. And the part that makes it so juicy and intriguing is that, you know, they're doing business, but you know the realism is there. You know that Seth Rollins is not going to like CM Punk for what he did. And CM Punk is like, bro, why would I be happy with a company that now you're benefiting from that changed because of the shit that I said? Like, I was basically Cody Rhodes when he left. Like, I don't want to be a mid-card guy when I think I'm a main eventer. I don't want to be a guy that makes all the money, does all the work, and in essence, he should have brought up like, hey, you know, when Seth Rollins, you know, is a hard worker and he says, don't you get pissed that your boy comes back all the time, is a part-timer at this point in time while you're sitting here working and grinding and all that. He could have maybe added a little bit more. Like, it was caliente. They could have made it muy caliente with a little bit more spice. Like, man, did all that work that you did the last 10 years, do you feel like it was worth it? You know, when John Cena is going to come back and take all the spotlight, or, you know, some nonsense to say, hey, others have come back and are part-timers and are riding the success off of your back, you know? So he could have amplified that even more. But at the same token, CM Punk, you know, with time and with the changes now that we see in WWE, I wish he would have spoke up sooner, you know, because you really do feel for those that don't get the push. Like, you know, you're CM Punk, you sell out the world. Everyone knows you're the best wrestler in the world. You're working 12 months a year, 300 matches, and then The Rock gets the main event. And you're just like, man, I can never crack it. I mean, year after year after year, and it's just taxing. So there was a mental fatigue that he went through and a physical fatigue, and he was trying to work hurt, and Vince is in there probably telling him one thing and then doing another and changing the script 50 times where he gets his hopes up and then gets disappointed, and you're just like, this shit ain't worth it anymore. So now it's so much better where CM Punk comes in and you're like, holy shit, look at the stories I'm getting. You're getting a year-long feud with Drew McIntyre. You're going to go back to a little bit of storytelling with Paul Heyman, and then you jump in with Seth Rollins. Fuck yeah, sign me up for that all day. And yes, it was probably one of the best promos of the year, and right up there with Cody and Kevin Owens and some of the stuff that they did as well. But this one probably, you know, by the time we look at it, it's a big-time promo and very well done.
Yeah, absolutely well done. Like you said, there's little things that you could have done to tweak it, but I thought overall it really helped build and sell what we're going to get this Monday, and that was the job of it. And there's a lot going on with CM Punk. Again, multiple storylines. There's stuff going on with Seth Rollins, multiple storylines. So we'll see kind of where this branches out when we get through with Monday. But I thought it did its job to sell what we're getting on Monday, and that was what was most important. We transition over to SmackDown. A couple things from SmackDown. SmackDown gets a bit of a new look. It's 3 hours long. First off, what did you think of the new look? You have a blue wrestling mat, which is really, really nice and eye-catching, and then you have a background for the boards on the outside to separate the general public and the wrestlers, and it says SmackDown going all around it. I really like that. I thought that was well done. Almost like hockey boards where they've got some advertisement. That basically just tells you what show it is. I thought it looked really, really good. What are your thoughts on the new look for SmackDown?
Fucking love it. Absolutely. The blue ring. I love it. I was like, what the hell is this? I was watching it at the kids volleyball tournament in Frankenmuth, and I'm sitting there. This shit pops on a 55. It pops, and it sticks out to the degree where it's different. And it's different because it matches the theme of the show. So I loved it. I thought it added, like, I don't know if it just made the TV pop. I just thought that the viewing experience made the ring pop. It made the promos pop. I felt like everything was like, I was looking at, like, I was watching it on my phone too, and the television. I'm like, I told Andrea, I said, look at how this looks on the phone. I just said, this looks clean. It looks good. And I just think that SmackDown is kind of synonymous with that blue color. So I just was like, yeah, this works. And it took me a minute to realize it, until maybe Kevin Owens got into it with his promo a little bit more, and Drew McIntyre got into it with Cody. I just thought that, man, this ring is looking bumping. And but I'm going to be curious if the rumors are true about Raw's, if I'm going to like that same color with what they're reporting on Raw. Blue is synonymous with SmackDown, and red is typically synonymous with Raw, but you're not hearing rumors of a red canvas. So we'll see how it looks on Netflix. It's because Netflix and the symbol as well. So we'll see, but kudos to SmackDown. It was fresh, and it was crazy. For the first 3-hour show, it did not lag at all. It was like segment, interesting, perfect, good match. It was like they brought their good writers. Basically, all the writers were on vacation and came back and were like, we're fresh, baby. Let's go. Let's put together these segments. And it was just like beautifully timed to see SmackDown 3 hours with the way they paced the promos and the matches and the backstage shit. It was great.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question for you was, what did you think of the pacing of SmackDown? Because like you said, I thought it was really, really well done. I thought they did a great job with their first 3-hour show. I thought they told good stories. They helped things move along, and it was quick. Wasn't slow. And I think it all kind of set up to what wasn't our main event. It was the co-main event, I guess. You had a women's match that got a ton of time. I think we went through 3, maybe 4 commercial breaks. There was a point in that match where I was like, man, they're really giving this a lot of time. And I thought it was a good match. So it was really, really good. It was Naomi versus Nia Jax, and I thought it told a really, really good story. Starting early on, Nia Jax in the back, wondering where Tiffany Stratton was, couldn't find her, had no idea, had no communications with her all day. As this match is wearing on and we're getting into probably, I want to say 30 minutes of this match, Tiffany Stratton's music hits. She comes running down to the ring with her briefcase, and she faked like she was going to cash in. Doesn't end up cashing in, uses the briefcase on Naomi. Hits her in the head, allows Nia Jax to get the win, really helps sell that she was there to help support Nia Jax. After the match, they're in the ring. She's, like, hey, look, Bianca Belair's there too. Go get Bianca. She was playing a part in this match earlier. Go ahead, take it out on her. So Nia Jax ends up going and hits a move on Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair is laid out. So that's when Tiffany Stratton strikes. She takes out Nia Jax. She ends up taking out Candice LeRae, and she then cashes in her briefcase. And she ends up actually, Bianca Belair then hits a KOD on Nia Jax. That's when Tiffany Stratton cashes in, and she hits the prettiest moonsault ever. It was fantastic. The shot of it was absolutely incredible. They have some different camera work now. I thought it was great, and she nails it. And she's champ, and it was well done. Like they told a great story within this match that had nothing to do with this match. I thought it was absolutely perfectly well done. Was it the right time to make that call, though? Because this is something you could have done on a pay-per-view. Instead, you gave it away for free on your first 3-hour SmackDown. You could have really built this up and done this at the Royal Rumble. You could have built this up and done this closer to Money in the Bank. Instead, you gave it away for free. So was it the right call to do it on SmackDown? I thought the way they executed it was absolutely perfect, though.
No, great timing. Dude, you got to remember, the Money in the Bank is in the middle of the year. So you got SummerSlam, you got Survivor Series, you got the Rumble upcoming. So it's the perfect time. It's a new year, and look, ding, 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 you passed the Triple H 150-day mark by 3 days. So that means it's time to, around that 130 to 150 days, it's now a formula.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it, man.
It's part of the formula that between 120 days and 160, these belts are flipping. He's like, this is perfect. This is good shit. 100 days, 150 days, we can make new stars. And the big stars get the belt for longer. But you hope for her that she gets a nice WrestleMania match this year, and I think she can carry it for maybe 350 days and maybe lose it at the Rumble next year or at Survivor Series this year later on. But you think that it's going to take a star, a big-time star, because I think Tiffany can do it all. And she's got the look, the sass, the persona, and now let's line them up. Let's see who she goes up against.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who she ends up squaring up with in her first her first series of matches. I'm assuming it'll be Nia Jax is who she's going to end up going against, as Nia's going to be pissed looking for revenge. Maybe it's Candice LeRae. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. Look, I thought it was great, and I think this is going to be a really nice run for her. She's going to be a face. They've been building her up as a face. She might be one of those gray tweener faces where she's not 100% good guy. She might have a little bit of a mean streak in her. We'll see what they do with her, but I thought this was absolutely perfectly done. I thought this was really well executed. I thought SmackDown killed it for its first 3-hour show. I thought it was really, really good. And I'll be honest with you, going into it, I was a little bit annoyed. Kid was a little bit of a mess that evening. We went out to eat. We had waited in line, waited, and it just did not line up with the kid's bedtime. Right as they were about to call us, we had to leave, bring the kid back and put her to sleep. So didn't have any dinner. We're on a bit of a staycation right now, so I didn't get to eat. I sat down. I was like, well, I got to grind through 3 hours of this shit. Let's just get going. And as I watched it, I was pleasantly surprised. It turned out to not be 3 hours of this shit. It turned out to be a pretty good 3 hours. So I was impressed. It's going to get my point for show of the week. I'm assuming it's going to get your point as well for show of the week. Was there anything else from WWE that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get to?
Maybe throughout the time we used to do Stock Watch. I think the female wrestler that I want to pay attention to this year is Michin. I think sneakily she's doing a good job. I like her matches. I like her entrance. I like her persona. I know that we know her through AJ Styles and the work that she did, with Gallows and Anderson, but I like her swagger. I like to see what she can do and bring to the table. And then on the other side, I think on Raw, it's time. Well, clearly Drew McIntyre on SmackDown is awesome. I thought that the sprinkling of the surprise there is going to tell a story that everybody wants to pay for. On the other side, I think it's time for Karrion Kross to kind of jump across the mid-card to some interesting shit. So let's see what he brings to the table this year. Two wrestlers that I want to see take the next jump up. Karrion Kross on Raw and Michin on SmackDown. Let's see what they bring to the table.
Yeah, Michin, if you watched any early TNA, when she was part of Beautiful People, she was absolutely fantastic. She was in a trio of really pretty girls who could wrestle, and she told great stories. Never in a million years thought that she would be here doing this, but she is very impressive, and hopefully she gets a nice little run going forward. All right, you ready for some news and notes? Very short this week. Very short.
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made the list?
So like I said, short news week this week. So we're going to bring you a quick little rundown of some news, notes. Really and truly, it's more rumors and speculation than anything else. So it sounds like Charlotte Flair will be back very, very soon. When she does come back, it's going to be with this Dark Queen gimmick. That's what's being talked about. So she'll come back as the Queen, but it's going to be something more like probably out of Snow White with the evil Dark Queen. Also, speaking of women, Becky Lynch is supposed to be coming back very soon, possibly on this upcoming Monday Night's Raw. Rumors are she's going to have a monster role at WrestleMania when she does come back, so we'll see what happens there. Now, John Cena is starting the farewell tour this Monday, and it sounds like he might face Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania this year. What are your thoughts on John Cena, Cody Rhodes possibly having a WrestleMania? John Cena going after that fictional 16-time record that Ric Flair has. Obviously, John Cena tied him, looking to one-up him and better him by one. Does he get it? Does he do it against Cody Rhodes? Or do we maybe go in a different direction for John Cena at WrestleMania? What are your thoughts?
No, you got to do it. You got to do Cena Cody. That's great. It's a story. I know it's two faces, but I think you could tell the story.
Maybe we get a heel John Cena. We never had a heel John Cena. Maybe he goes heel.
You said it. That's the intriguing part. You can't. I mean, he's got a year. How do you build that out? People say he goes heel for 3 months and you figure it out. But look, that's something that's going to be a mega match. It's WrestleMania worthy, but it sucks because we all know that it'll be, if it was a betting odds, it'd be Cody Rhodes minus 1 billion. That there's no chance John Cena is going to win the title. I think that the hope is there. I think you have him get some good wins along the way to get to WrestleMania, so it's believable. And, that's the homework, is to make it so that it's almost believable. And you have, maybe he can work as a heel-ish in the match, but look, it's going to have the feel of a super light Rock Hogan type situation, where the crowd might turn on Cody just to have a good time with John Cena. And I think you could have one of those moments where Cody just works heel, and in the end, everybody cheers that it was a good match, that they got to see it. But it's going to be fun to see how they incorporate John Cena starting on Monday.
Absolutely. John Cena is one of my favorite of all time. I love him. Every time his music hits, I pop like a little kid, like a little girl, actually. So I'll be interested in watching this Monday. Also, finally, Pentagon Jr. will be debuting very, very soon. I don't have a date, but it's going to be very, very soon. You've seen enough of the promos. You know it's coming. Honestly, it could be Monday, but I'm going to say probably not, but it could be Monday. Either way, we will have Pentagon Jr. in WWE very, very soon. That's going to do it for this week's news and notes and really, truly more rumors and conversation. That's going to be it.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. We kick off another great year of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. Two fellas that love wrestling. And it kind of intertwined this week where Seth Rollins felt the need to share. And I get it. He's a Bears fan. He's suffering. He wants Ben Johnson from the Lions to coach his team. But he's also, check out Detroit Lions on SI as we shared what Seth Rollins said on his interview with Good Morning Football. He's up to he's not going to give you the nitty-gritty PFF grades, but he understood clearly who the favorites are to take the Bears job. And he's got a great bit where when the Bears lose, he just says he hates football, but he knows what's up. So our little worlds intertwine there for a little bit this week. But it's a fun time to be a wrestling fan, man. It's great to be able to interact with people in that realm, to be amped up about a new year. It has the feel of bigger and better things. And I can't wait for next week's show because we get to finally review Raw on Netflix. Let's see if early reviews of the I knew it was going to be disaster. Early reviews of the switch from Peacock. Not all the Raws are there. It's expected. You have some situations where CM Punk's music is not aligned with the subtitles. You got some weirdness in regards to the glitches, but in the end, that was my expectation. Some of the stuff is cool. Some of the stuff is still there on Peacock. You can still watch Rumbles and Manias and stuff like that. So I hope that lasts for a little bit of time. But the migration, in my opinion, should have just been whole. Like, come on, you had a year. You can't migrate your library. At least one whole 5-year run of Raw, the first 5 years or the first 5 years of SmackDown. Like, I just think that, when you do something like this, it's light. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff and it's about really the new programming. But I just wish in some form WWE could have kept the network, because that was the cleanest version of just sitting down. You want to go to a Raw, you could go right to the one that you wanted to watch. It was clean. The original version that got out there was so good. But the incarnation with Peacock and now Netflix, it just seems like from the time they decided to update the network, when they had the most beautiful interface where it was just Raw, SmackDown, all the pay-per-views in order, they make an update and they completely change the interface. Since then, it got worse progressively. None of the interfaces look good. They're not user-friendly. You got to hit 5 things, and then you got to hit 5 more things to try to get to the episode. And it's just like, who likes this? Like, I don't like the seasons as, like, I don't consider WrestleMania season 2 WrestleMania 2. Like, just put the fucking WrestleMania 1 through 30. Like, come on. This is not rocket science. Nobody cares to go, I don't go to Adam, hey, cuz, you want to come over and watch WrestleMania season 35? It's like, come on, dude. Just put it in a simple, label it WrestleMania, all of them under one header. The next tab is Royal Rumble. You go right through it and keep it moving. But every time, and that's what's been crazy about apps too. I try not to update any apps because every time an app updates, it does something that I hate. And that's my soapbox for this week. So Netflix, you got a challenge from the DOC. Don't fuck up Raw. It's the longest running television show in history. So at 8 o'clock on Monday, you best not be fucking up when 4 or 5 million people try to get on that stream at the same time. And let's see how people react to the first episode of Netflix. Some weird shit's gonna happen, and let's just hope that the surprises are not the tech glitches, and let's hope they're the returning wrestlers or surprises that people want to see. For the Jock Adam Strozinski, I'm the Doc John Macaroon. I can't wait to fire it up next week for the next episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.